You see, ladies and gentlemen, elections have consequences. And it is time that we give them, as a Republican Party, an alternative. And we haven't always had the best alternatives. But now I'm convinced that with the type of leadership that Mike espouses, that he's talked about today, that Alex has talked about and has given us, that I am convinced that we have the opportunity to give us in Annapolis to represent this district in 3B, in Frederick counties and Washington counties, that is the type of leadership that we have presented to us, that we have that opportunity to bring our state back. So I am very proud to submit my full support to Mike Hough in his quest. And I
It would have been good if he paid you.
Yeah, I paid him for 4 years. He worked with me for 4 years. I may not be a jack of all trades like your chairman, pretty much politics, but I am also the godfather of your first child. Don't forget that part there. But it was wonderful when I met Mike many years ago and recruited him to work with me. I actually volunteered on my 2002 campaign and went above and beyond as a volunteer, and I realized it's opportunity to hire him, so I did. And then when this seat came open to run for office, Mike thought about running. And it sort of, as I was driving up here, it reminded me of a quote. Let's see if you guys know who said this. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Who said it? All right, Chris Shank, Delegate Shank here, the next speaker knows it. That was Edmund Burke, an English philosopher. You've all heard the quote. I actually didn't know who to attribute it to, so I looked it up before I came. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Mike doesn't have to run for this seat. He can make more money, have more time with his wife and children if he didn't run for this seat. But it's the right thing to do. It's the reason we run for office. As many of you all know, if you've met me, my mother's back here, my wife's back here. My mother's an immigrant from Cuba. She came when she was 21 from the country of Cuba. Fidel Castro took it over, put everybody in jail. And my wife's parents went through the same thing. And, a lot of good men weren't fighting at that time. Fidel Castro calmed them. And, and no matter where you are, evil people are always out there trying to do things, doing bad things. It can be things as bad as abortion, to things as bad as raising taxes, to taking away your Second Amendment rights, to keep and bear arms, to bigger government programs that shouldn't exist. And, good men have to stand up and fight these things. So it was quite a pleasure to see Mike running. He knows how to run a campaign. He managed my last campaign in 2006, so he knows what he's doing. He's not going to waste the dollars you're investing in his campaign. I can guarantee you that. And I applaud you all for coming, because when you paid to come here, you made a donation, whatever you could give, and again, you're helping good prevail over what could be bad situations. And
so unless you're going to build a moat, put a brick wall up around Maryland, you just cannot keep increasing taxes. It's going to put us to where all the productive people and all the productive businesses are leaving the state. And we're going to end up like California or Michigan, one of these states that has a constant deficit, and everyone's leaving our state. That's the wrong path, and that's not the way to go. In fact, one of the things we did at ALEC, we put out a book called Rich State, Poor States, and they actually tracked it. They actually tracked people leaving states like California and Michigan and going to low-tax places like Florida and Texas. And those places, Texas and other examples, Virginia, sure, they've had a deficit, but nothing like Maryland, nothing where it's $1 billion every year out. Why? Because they've been smart. In the good times, they cut spending, so that when the bad times come, they weren't stuck in a situation like we are now in Maryland. So we've got to get people in, and I've already signed a pledge to Americans for Tax Reform that I will vote against all tax increases. Any and all tax increases I will vote against. And I will work down there in Annapolis to hold the line on spending. And in years like this, we should not be increasing spending at all. There should be no increase in spending. When you've got families out there, you've got a 10% unemployment rate, you've got people out there suffering, the state of Maryland needs to cut its budget just like anybody else. So that's another promise. When I'm in Annapolis, I promise fiscal responsibility and lower taxes are two of my main priorities that I will work for. And just two other problems I'll point out right now with the state of Maryland, things that I think we can fix, and we can make the state a lot better as far as bringing in more jobs, bringing in more business. We are far overregulated in this state. And one example I'll give you, it's a small example, but something that could easily be fixed. If you are a landscape artist, a tree trimmer, a manicurist. If you want to start a small business, before you start that business, you have to go to the state of Maryland and get an occupational license. You have to take a test, you've got to pay money, and every year you've got to go back and pay money and take another test. Now, this license were actually first set up for doctors and nurses for when it was health, safety, and welfare as a criteria. Well, now it's so expanded in the state of Maryland where there are almost 100 occupations out there. And my favorite occupation that requires a license is fortune teller. Now, if anybody here can tell me what the difference between a licensed fortune teller and an unlicensed fortune teller, that would be a good answer. I personally don't know. I don't know what the difference between a fraudulent fortune teller and a legit licensed fortune teller, other than they pay the state of Maryland a $100 fee every year. So these are kind of barriers for people that they want to come in our state and they want to set up a small business. If you want to be a manicurist, if you want to do hair, if you want to braid hair, if you want to braid hair and charge people, you have to go to the state of Maryland and get a license and pass a test. I mean, that is just ridiculous. That is ridiculous for anybody that wants to start a small business. These are the kind of barriers that we need to get rid of.